I have been preparing for the what's next, and I have neglected the what's now. He just kind of gently put on my spirit, like, I don't require anything else from you. What I need from you is, and I had this gut punch moment where I was like, man, am I neglecting Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of the Stand Up, Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Warren, and I am super excited to be with you guys for episode number 8. Almost the double digits. We're almost there. Guys, thank you again. I say it every week, and I'm going to continue to say it because I am extremely humbled and grateful to all of you who have been along for the journey so far, who've been listening and watching and just checking out the episode, leaving comments, sharing with friends, subscribing to the channels. All you guys' support means the world. And so, as always, I'm just going to continue to ask to keep it going, keep the train rolling. For those of you that have already subscribed, make sure you have the notification bell turned on so that when new episodes drop, you'll get alerted. That actually will help in the algorithm, not only so you see the content, but so that other people can see the content too. If you haven't subscribed already, I please just ask and encourage you to do so, and then share with friends, guys. Get this out online. I'm working hard to put forth my best effort, and so I just appreciate your guys' support in that. And this week, getting into what the Lord's been showing me, it was a really good week with the Lord. Yesterday I had a super cool experience, but I'm going to leave that for the end of this episode because really the meat of what I wanted to share with you guys came from earlier in the week. So I've shared before in previous episodes, but I currently work in construction. And a lot of times when I'm at work, I'll put a headphone in just on one side and play some music while I'm working. Just keep the rhythm, keep the groove sort of thing. And so a lot of times I listen to like my gym playlist because it's very like, rah, high speed, gets the energy up. So it's just like a lot of Christian hip hop music, stuff I really like listening to, but it gets me in the mood to like get to work and get after it. But every once in a while when I'm working, as weird as it is, even when I'm having to work really, really hard, I don't know if it's like this for anybody else. But for me, sometimes when I'm working out or when I'm doing any sort of work that's like super hard physically, I actually really like listening to like slower, calmer music, which is very like counterproductive. But I've actually heard from quite a few guys that are big into like bodybuilding and weightlifting, guys that I know personally and guys I've talked to online who've said that they actually do this. They listen to like super sad, slow music when they work out. They don't listen to like super upbeat or hardcore stuff. And so I was having one of those days where I was at work, threw my headphone in, and I was just in the mood to just kind of listen to something that was calming and relaxing. And so I just threw on I have a playlist just called my prayer playlist. And it's just a playlist of songs that are just purely worship songs. They're not just Christian songs, but they're worship songs, and they're songs that I can just kind of listen to throughout the day. And one of the songs on my playlist is a song called Daily Bread by Carrie Job and Pat Barrett. It dropped last year. I encourage you guys to go listen to the song for yourself. It's amazing. But I want to read you the opening lines and the chorus of this song, and then I want to tell you kind of what hit my heart almost immediately. So the opening line says, "Waking up to manna, coming to my senses, you meet me in my grumbling, you give me my portion. Though flesh and heart may fail me, your strength is there to hold me. Keep my heart steady, you are my portion. Oh, you are my portion." And then the chorus goes like this. You are our daily bread. You are our daily bread, and we will seek your face before we seek your hand. You are our daily bread. You are our daily bread, and we desire you before the promised land. And when I heard that last line in the chorus, mind you, I've listened to this song, I don't even know how many times. A lot. But sometimes, I don't know, this may just be a me thing. Like, music speaks to me differently. There's a lot of times where I'm feeling something and I don't know how to put it into words, and then I'll find a song that just seems to nail it. But the other side of it is, like, there can be songs that I listen to like over and over and over again, and then randomly, like this one time I listen to it, a certain line will just like hit me and just kind of rock me to my core. And that's what this song did. And so in the chorus it said, you are our daily bread, we desire you before the promised land. And I was fascinated with that line for a number of reasons. The idea of daily bread is very multifaceted in Scripture. And so I'm going to get into what exactly was hitting me with this in a minute, but I wanted to kind of just dive into Scripture like we typically do here, and look at Exodus chapter 16, because when it says waking up to manna, you are our daily bread, it's clearly talking about when the Israelites were in the wilderness after leaving Egypt, when God provided manna from heaven to feed them, and manna was bread, hence you are our daily bread. And so in chapter 16, it says, starting in verse 1, then they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. So real quickly, if we're just doing math, I believe my notes here say, exactly 1 month had passed since Israel's exodus from Egypt. So they have now been in the wilderness for a month. And it says, the whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The sons of Israel said to them, would that we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. And then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them, whether or not they will walk in my instruction. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. So Moses and Aaron said to all the sons of Israel, at evening you will know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, for he hears your grumblings against the Lord. And what are we that you grumble against us? And so it's kind of a crazy story. It's one of those ones where it's really easy to point the finger at Israel and go, really? But then when you sit and think about it in your own life, you go, oh yeah, I do the exact same thing. So the Lord just had sent 10 plagues into Egypt to get them freed. They were witnesses to all of them. They experienced all of them. Then they leave Egypt. Pharaoh changes his mind, sends the army after him. God parts the Red Sea, and they cross the sea on dry land. And then God brings the sea down on their enemies, and they experience all that. And then they turn around in the wilderness, and because they're hangry, they're like, dude, it would be better to just be slaves back in Egypt, because at least when we were slaves, we had food. And it's like, that's a wild thing to say when you just sit here and read it, but it's like, how often in our own lives are we guilty of kind of doing the same thing? Like, God provides this, and he provides that, and he provides this, and he provides that, and then like one thing doesn't go our way, and we're like, well, this is just the worst. I mean, I might as well, be a slave back in Egypt, and so that's what the people are doing here. And God says, I'm going to send bread from heaven. And so he sends manna from heaven every single day. And so he says, I'm going to test the people. I want to know if they're going to follow my instructions. So they're only supposed to gather enough for one day, except for on the sixth day, then they need to gather enough for 2 days, because on the seventh day they rest. So they're not supposed to get up and gather food, right? And so the first kind of facet of God providing the bread is that he's providing for the people. He's providing for their fleshly needs. They need food in order to be sustained. He also provides meat, because man should not live on bread alone. They get into that later. But God provides food for the Israelites. So he provides. Then it's also that he's testing them to see if they will actually follow instruction. And so he's using it as a way to check their will and their obedience to see if they're going to actually follow through. But then in John, let me flip over here. Jesus calls himself the bread of life. Here it says, the crowd's talking to Jesus in John chapter 6, verse 31. It says, our fathers ate the manna. Our fathers ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread out of heaven to eat. In verse 32, it says, Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread out of heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread out of heaven. For the bread of God is that which comes down out of heaven and gives life to the whole world. Then they said to him, Lord, always give us this bread. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will not hunger, and he who believes in me will never thirst. But I said to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe. So, before continuing on, the thing that hit me out of this song was the line, we desire you before we desire the promised land. And I felt convicted and ashamed and just kind of gut punched by that line, because Jesus is the bread of life. And if we think back to the Lord's Prayer, it says, give us this day our daily bread. And we think about that, I've always been taught about that as like, that's praying about, Lord, meet my fleshly needs today. Provide me food, provide me water, meet my basic needs. But also, this giving, that goes back to like the provision side of the story in Exodus. But with Jesus being the bread of life, the whole idea of give us this day our daily bread, to me, I kind of look at it and read it as like, give us, let me spend time with you today. Like, get me plugged into the bread of life today. Give me my daily bread. And I had this gut punch moment where I was like, man, am I neglecting my daily bread, my daily time with Jesus? Am I neglecting Jesus as my daily bread because I'm trying to look forward to the promised land? And, I'm in a stage of my life right now where my future is kind of unknown career-wise. Like, there's a lot of things kind of up in the air. There's a lot of shifting sand underneath my feet. And, I've just been praying and seeking after the Lord and, what do you want to, where do you want me? And what do you want to do with me? And all these things. And I'm a man of ambition, which is good if you can keep it in check and submit that ambition to God. And I just had this gut punch moment of like, have I gotten so caught up with like the achievements and the things that I want to move towards and like the quote unquote promised land, like the dream jobs, the things that I've prayed for, the things that I want? Have I desired those things so much that I've actually neglected my daily bread by just getting connected to the bread of life? Like, have I just completely dropped the ball on that, and that's like what really convicted me this week. It was just, as soon as I heard that song, I was like, man, am I guilty of that? Like, could I sing those lyrics with being honest? We desire you before we desire the promised land. Like, it never even hit me in the whole story of God providing the manna that he wanted them to be dependent on him before they came into abundance. Because if he had just given them the fruits and the riches of the promised land, like right off the bat, then, they would more likely not actually depend on him for anything, because they would just be like, well, like, we got all these blessings. Why bother? But it was like part of the daily manna was a exercise in not only obedience, but in a dependence on God before he allowed them to experience abundance and riches and all of those things of the promised land. And I was just really faced this week with like, what do I desire more? Do I live with a dependence on God? Or am I just sitting here going, why can't I get to the promised land yet? Why can't I get to the promised land yet? Why can't I get to the promised land yet? And that just being honest with you guys, that one, it just hurt when I heard it, because I was like, oh, I definitely know I've dropped the ball on this one. Like, I know I fell short and I haven't done this right. And that's a bummer, like, I hate when you get those type of gut punches, but I love them at the same time, because it's just like a very gentle, gracious way of the Spirit just prompting you to like, hey, something's not on par where it should be. And as I've just been in this season of, what's next, and having all these ideas and these aspirations and things I want to do with my life, and, even things that as I sit here, I'm like, I want to do these things for the Lord. Like, there's things that I want to do to be on mission for him. And so I feel, justified, and I feel righteous for asking for these things. And yet I missed the forest through the trees a bit. I was so focused on the promised land that I neglected to learn my lesson in the wilderness, I guess, is a way to put it. And like, I know that right now I'm in this season of preparation, and I'm in this season of training. And I've been trying to be really diligent about that. Like, I've been trying to be cautious and just preparing myself for whatever it is the Lord calls me to next. I've been trying to be really good about preparing my family for what I feel like God may be calling us to next, and preparing my marriage, and preparing my children and my relationship with my children, and all of these things, and just slowly trying to make sure that I'm preparing and I'm getting ready for the quote unquote promised land, the next big thing, the next step, whatever that thing is. But it just hit me this week that part of the Lord providing for their needs in the wilderness was also to teach them to be dependent on him, and to understand that he will always meet their needs, and anything above that is just more blessing from his hand. And now we know that the Israelites fail to get this lesson, that they get into the promised land, and then, they actually go check out the promised land. They run from the promised land. They spend 40 more years in wilderness. You would think they finally learned their lesson, but they didn't. They go back to the promised land. And then when they get into the promised land, they, start turning their back on God again. They start going haywire. They start doing all these things. And it's like the one who provided the bread from heaven and the meat from heaven for you every single day in the wilderness, and you just turn your back on him. You just neglect him. And so as I sat this week and I just sat and looked at this, and Jesus saying, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will not hunger, and he who believes in me will never thirst. And I was like, what an amazing promise that I have failed to recognize the weight of in this season of my life. Like, I don't know, it's crazy. In one sense, I have been so aware of the fact that this is a season of preparation. And yet I have also completely failed to be dependent on him in that season of preparation. I'm just constantly looking forward of like, all right, like what do I need to do to get to thing, or how are you going to work this out to get me to this thing? Or, any one of those type of questions or scenarios that I've been bringing to the Lord. And it's been, what I would feel like from a good place, like good godly ambition of, Lord, I want to serve you, and I want to be able to provide for my family, and I want to be able to go, I want to be able to move, and I want to be a part of your plan. And so, Lord, send me. What do you need from me? What do you want me to do? And I got to the place this week where he's like, just, kind of sit down and shut up. Just spend some time with me. Like every time you get with me, you're so tunnel visioned on the thing that I have laid ahead of you, and just wanting to know the next step and wanting to know the next move. And you have completely neglected just spending some time with me, of just getting to be dependent on me. Every time you come to me, you're coming to me with questions, and you're wanting answers. You're wanting provision of abundance. You're wanting your desires and your hopes and your dreams to come true. And even though I've, like I've said, like I have, but at the same time I've felt not bad about it, because I'm like, but like these things are for you also. And that's, I think, the tricky point of like, you can, the road to hell is paved with good intentions is kind of, that's a popular quote, but it's like, it's one of those things where like this whole time I have been preparing for the what's next, and I have neglected the what's now. And that just really hit me this week of like, am I desiring God more than I'm desiring the promised land? Am I desiring the bread of life more than the abundance that is ahead of me? And more importantly, if I had to spend 40 years with nothing but that daily bread, would it be enough? Would I be like the Israelites, grumbling and mumbling, and I'd rather be a slave? Or could I just be grateful for every single day waking up and having my daily bread, the bread of life, the one who says, he who comes to me will not hunger, and he who believes in me will never thirst? I think in a world of, with social media and everything, it's just so easy to sit and always compare, and view, see people's, kind of fake lives, the ones they post on social media where everything's picture perfect, but sit and go, why don't I have this? And I wish I had that. And that would be really nice. And, sure would be cool if, and all those things. And then on top of that, looking to your future and the things you want to do and the moves that you want to make. And it's like, if you got stuck with nothing but daily bread, which is the word and the Lord, for 40 years in the wilderness, would it be enough? Could you honestly say that you would desire that every single day more than you desire the promised land? Whatever your promised land is. For me, being completely honest with you guys, my promised land is getting to move into full-time ministry in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that's my hope and prayer and goal right now. And so you can see how wanting to move into full-time ministry, I can convince myself that I'm doing it not for me, but for the Lord. And that's true. Like I do want to do it for him, but in that pursuit, being so passionate and so ambitious, I missed. And so this week, I just was a little bit more intentional with my time with the Lord, of like not always asking about what's next and what do I need to do and how are you going to work this out and when is it going to happen and those things. But I just started talking about today. Lord, what do you have for me today? What do you need from me today? What conversations can I be having today? What opportunity are you going to give me today? And then what was really cool was, so right now I get Friday through Sunday off. I work a 4-10 schedule, which is awesome. Huge blessing. But Friday morning, I had a meeting at 10. And so I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going to wake up before you and the kids are up, and I'm going to take off, and I'm going to go spend some time in the wilderness, like for real. Like I'm going to go out into the woods somewhere and just spend some time with God. And I live in a place outside of the city area, so I'm literally minutes from just the woods and national forests and stuff, which is awesome. And so I have this spot that I normally go to when I kind of want to just get away, and it's about 10 minutes out of town. So I drove up there, and the gate to the road was closed. And there wasn't a sign saying if they were closed due to the hour that I was up there or if it was closed for the season or what was going on. But I was like, oh man, like I can't go up to where I wanted to go. And so I was sitting there and I was like, okay, where do I want to do this? The sun's going to be coming up soon and I want to kind of be seated somewhere, planted somewhere before the sun comes up. And so I was thinking about it and I was like, all right, Lord, where do you want me, sort of thing? And I was like, you know what? There was a hill like a quarter mile back up the road that when you came over the top of the hill, you could see like this whole valley and the lake and all this stuff. And so I was like, it's not exactly out in the woods, but why don't I just drive up the hill and I'll just pull over to the shoulder and I'll just sit and watch the view and I can just do my quiet time in my car. It's not exactly what I had imagined, but it'll still be a cool view and I'll get to be out here, whatever. And so that's what I did. I drove back up, turned around, pulled over to the shoulder, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this view. And as I'm sitting there, I look over to my right, and over the guardrail and about 100 yards off the road, I can see this hill that's taller than all the other areas around it. And there's a gravel track up the side of it. And so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, and I'm like, you know what? I bet if I hop this guardrail and I kind of make my way down this little ravine, if I can make it to that gravel track, I can just follow it all the way up the hill. And then I bet the view up there is phenomenal. And so I grabbed my backpack, I locked my car, I hopped over the guardrail, started kind of hiking my way down this ravine. I was not dressed for the occasion. The place I normally go to is just basically a walk path through the woods, and so I was just wearing sneakers. And so I did a little off-roading, but I made it down to the gravel path, and I took the gravel path up to the top of this hill, and I get to the top of the hill, and this is what's waiting for me. I'm going to try and insert a picture here into the video. So if you guys are audio only listeners, I'm just going to describe real quickly what I'm seeing. I get over the top of the hill, and there is a giant wooden cross planted at the top of this hill, overlooking the ravine and the valley and all this stuff. And I just started laughing out loud. And out loud, I looked up to the sky, and I was like, oh, so you're just waiting for me here, huh? Because here I am, like, I'm going to go off in the wilderness, and I'm going to go spend some time with the Lord. And then I end up going somewhere I was not planning on, completely spur of the moment. And I get up there, and there's this giant wooden cross. And it was a bittersweet moment, because I did, as I approached the cross and looked at the writings and stuff on it, I realized it was actually a memorial for somebody. And so I did spend some time just praying for them and for their loved ones and family and community and stuff like that. But it was also just kind of this funny moment of like, I'm going to go off in the wilderness to find God. And he's like, yeah, I'll be here waiting, and so I hope I got that picture to insert. Otherwise, this is going to be a really awkward portion of the podcast. But I believe in my technical capabilities to get that picture in this video. So hopefully you guys see that. But anyways, it was just cool. God met me there. And then I sat down with him. I found a rock that just overlooked the whole area right next to the cross. And I just spent some time drinking coffee and talking to the Lord and reading scripture. And as I was sitting there, and I was just praying, and I started praying kind of the, Lord, what do you want me to do? What's the next step? What conversations do I need to have? Is there something I'm missing here? Yada, yada, yada. He just kind of gently put on my spirit, like, I don't require anything else from you. What I need from you is to just stay faithful to what you're already been doing, the stuff you've already been called to. And then I need you to just continue to prepare. But stop. Stop worrying about what's next. I've got what's next. You focus on what's in front of you. And it was just another great reminder of exactly what I felt when I heard that line in that song, Daily Bread, by Carrie Job and Pat Barrett, of, we desire you before the promised land. And it was like, okay, I've done a lot of the work. I've laid a lot of the foundation. I've worked really hard to position myself well. I've stewarded well what I could. But I just need to spend some time getting dependent on God for the daily stuff, and just spending daily time with him, and stop stressing about what's next and what's next and what's next. And it's not wrong to ask God about the future and plans. I hope that is clear from what I've been sharing, that it's not bad for you to ask the Lord what's next. But I think where my conviction lied was just when you're so focused on the future that you neglect the present. You can do that in any relationship. But I realized this week I've been kind of doing that with the Lord. And I got to a place where I was desiring the promised land more than I was desiring my daily bread with him. And that was what really hit me. It was like, man, I got my priorities out of whack, and the promised land looks great. And I can justify all these reasons for why I really want it. But in reality, none of those reasons are good enough. Because in reality, if I spent 40 years in the wilderness with nothing but my daily bread, the bread of life, I should be content with that. I should be grateful for that. Because that in and of itself would be a blessing. And I just hadn't been. I just missed the mark. And so I know this is a little bit of a shorter episode, but that was just like the thing that was just really on my heart this week. And I didn't want to get too off on the bunny trails of little things. I wanted to just really hone in on this point as I was praying about what to share with y'all and just kind of thinking about all that the Lord said to me this week, because he's given me some exciting things too. I've been praying this week about what to be preaching for future sermons. I got future stuff for the youth group coming up, so I've been praying through that. Super excited for that. Praying about stuff for my church and all those things. And it's been a really good week with the Lord. It's been really eventful. He's given me a lot of really good things. But yesterday on that hilltop, he just really, really honed in. Like, man, you need to make sure you're just desiring me more than what's next. And get happy and content with the blessings I'm giving you now before I'm going to pour out the abundance, and so it was a great heart check for me. It was a great correction that I needed. I was super grateful to have that. And yeah, I hope that maybe it encourages you to kind of sit and evaluate where you're at. That, ask the question, how am I doing in this category? Am I seeking my daily bread, or am I always seeking what's next? Am I seeking the promised land, the big things? Do I desire God more than I desire the abundance? And, I don't know. Just spend some time thinking about that, reading through it. Exodus 16, like I said earlier, is where we hear the story of manna. I believe it's Deuteronomy 8 is where Moses actually kind of explains a little bit more in detail the reasoning behind the manna, if you want to go read that. And then John chapter 6 is where Jesus tells them that he is the bread of life. And then Matthew 6:9 is the Lord's Prayer, where he says, give us this day our daily bread. And man, that's been my prayer this week. But my daily bread is not just my daily needs, but my daily need for the Lord, and just building a dependence on him and making sure that my daily bread consists of the bread of life. And I hope this blessed you guys. I hope this encourages you guys. And if nothing else, you can learn from my mistakes. Maybe you've already learned this, and so you're ahead of me, which is awesome. But I just wanted to get up here and share that with you guys and tell you guys I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope that you get some good time in the Word. I hope you get some good time in fellowship and some good time in prayer. And besides that, guys, just remember that no matter where you go and no matter who you're around, it is always important to stand up and stand out for Christ. I'll see you guys next week. Peace. Hey, guys, thank you again for checking out another episode of the Stand Up, Stand Out podcast. And if you're new here and you're wondering why I call this the SUSO Podcast and what it means to stand up and stand out, I would encourage you guys to check out this video right here where I actually go and explain from a biblical standpoint what it means to stand up and stand out for Christ. And if you're just curious about why I started a podcast to begin with and the journey that brought me up to this point, I would encourage you to check out this episode right here where I just talk about how I got here to begin with. And so you can learn a little bit more about my story and my testimony. Outside of that, guys, thank you again for checking me out. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next week. Peace.